Often, in different parts of the teachings, let's say, it's said, Wangpu Gonam Taktusum. This comes from a verse of Atisha, which means protect continuously the doors of your senses. We're often reminded of the importance of protecting the doors of our senses, which are mostly body, speech, and mind. Protect the doors of the senses, what we see, what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, the way we relate to the world. Once, I remember Lumpur Thata, the abbot of Dharmakaya, who came here from Thailand. And he said something that really touched me, He said, he explained, it was a long explanation, I don't remember exactly, but he was saying that the root of our suffering are our mental defilements. And he said, since we want to change our mind, we need to change our habits, because it's by changing our habits that we change our mind. If we're not able to transform, this is what I say, if we're not able to transform our way of acting physically and verbally, we won't be able to change our mind. It's obvious that if we can transform the mind, as a consequence, we also change the way we speak and act. But the objective is not the way we speak or the way we act. I mean, our objective is the mind. The point isn't how I speak or how I physically interact. The main goal is, what are the emotions behind my words, behind my actions? What is my way of thinking? What's my worldview, my way of interacting inside that's behind all of these actions? And often sometimes I have this feeling, although maybe I'm wrong, that we have a little bit, in this modern Buddhism in which we find ourselves. No, what's important is the mind, our mind. And sometimes one can feel, someone can trick oneself. Say, okay, I can, talk the way I want because my motivation is good. I can act in any way because my motivation anyway is good. Is it really good? Or do we say that we have a good motivation because somewhere we have some good motivation, but we're always also taken by our mental defilements of attachment and envy, etc. We need to really be careful to not trick ourselves, because we have only to lose. It's important to remind ourselves also that our senses, the way we manifest ourselves, the way the world manifests itself to us, even on a social level, this interaction with other people. Because the way I speak, the way I interact, is what the other perceives of me often, and that creates an interaction in one way or another, and that's another level. But before that, it's the fact that when we speak, when we interact, physically, verbally, etc., with the decisions we take, etc., we are showing our thoughts, our feelings. we're manifesting them. And as Lumpur Tata said, by changing our habits, the way we speak and what we do physically, by doing that, we are changing the mind. It's difficult to point um, at point the finger at our feelings and say you shouldn't think this or you shouldn't feel that. And it's very difficult, not impossible, but very difficult. It's easier to recognize certain physical um, 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 and verbal behaviors and say, I shouldn't act like this. And that is much easier to observe, watch, and control. And Rinpoche, if you see, he told us the same thing. Rinpoche, all day long, I mean, he would repeat, peace speaking, peace listening, peace looking, etc., etc. Peace with everything, everything with peace. And in Buddha's teachings, from what I've been able to see, there are three ways of acting, of growing along our spiritual path. And it's not that one is superior to the other. Each method adapts itself to where each one is, because a so-called more a more developed, let's say, method in the hands of someone who is not there yet is less valid. You know, if I don't know how to pilot a helicopter, you know, and I know only how to ride a bicycle, then it's not going to work. So it's not that one is superior to the other. We need to use the tools for which we are ready. And these tools are primarily three. On the first level, we need to mostly face and direct our external conduct. How we speak, how we physically interact. Don't do this, do that. And if we see, if you look at the vows of Pratimoksha, don't steal or lie, or don't have a wrong sexual don't have a wrong sexual conduct, don't use violent speech, don't behave in a violent don't speak or behave violently. And if you look at the monastic vows and the vows that are called personal liberation, let's remember that vows are guidelines. You know, don't steal, don't kill, don't lie. These are things that are relative to external things that we should do and things that we shouldn't do. Based on our behavior towards the world. You know, Rinpoche would often talk about the non-formal education. Sometimes Rinpoche, talking with him, sometimes he would say this non-formal education is important, but sometimes we need also a big dose of formal education before. I mean, we live together, not just as a family or a community or at work, but in the world we are beings who interact with each other. And so it becomes absolutely fundamental for there to be respect among us, that every one of us knows the limits, and know where to go to not step on other people's toes. If we were all beings full of love and wisdom and at peace with ourselves, and as a consequence at peace with others, then we wouldn't need rules, because it wouldn't matter where we were, we would be in harmony. But I don't think that that's our case. There's selfishness, there's jealousy, there's anger, envy, there are many feelings that take us beyond that line of respect towards others. So there is a part of formal education. They're just simple rules of living together respectfully that I think are, generally speaking, are very important. Personally, I learned much more at the monastery of Sera in India than in any other place where there was a kind of, how can I say, a harmony that's created from the fact that one knows the limits, and that gives also security, this stability. And this is all part of this first level. And this first level, we need to be careful and pay attention to our external conduct. When we're able to have a certain control over our external conduct, when we're able to avoid a certain way of aggressive, violent speech, or when we speak, for example, when we talk about speech, Buddha described 4 types of speech that we should avoid. Lying, jun, nakyan, siksuk, and tongue. So we have using words to lying. Lying means I want you to show you something different from the reality that I see. So I try to direct your perception of reality so that it's different. So that's don't lie. Using words that create division among people. So say things so they create division, regardless of whether it's true or not. Sometimes we can say things that are, like, from our point of view, completely true, but they create conflict and division. And so this should be avoided. Then the third, are using violent speech in general, independently of whether it's true or not. In this case, not necessarily, it might not create division, but we shouldn't use our speech violently, which doesn't necessarily mean using bad words, but words that just would hurt another. And we know that this is something possible. You don't need so many examples. And the fourth is the hardest. It says, among all negative actions described by Buddha, it's the least. Not so bad, but we do it so much. It's speaking, using, just talking for talking, just using idle speech. So among these, so lying, what happens, that creates an incoherence with ourselves. So these 4 types of negative speech, the problem is they create habit. The more you lie, the more it comes easily to lie. There's something interesting because lying is described as a specific action of speech. When one actually says something to try to direct the other to have a perception of reality that's different from what I have, because it's not that what I say is, or what I see is the reality, but I'm trying to direct you far from the reality that I see. At the same time, in the tradition, we talk also about secrets. And here I just open and close quickly some parentheses. In our culture, a secret is mostly something that is hidden to is something hidden to hide something negative. There's something that's not good. I've done something wrong, so it's a secret. It's hidden. We don't say why, because we are trying to hide something negative. When we see within the Vajrayana tradition, you hear like this is a secret practice or this is a secret. The secret instead is something that protects something positive. There are certain teachings, like the Lojong teachings, for example, that are extremely simple. But if the person is not really ready to put them into practice, they just lose their value. So for centuries, they remained secret, and they were transmitted to those who were ready to put them into practice. In the Vajrayana Tantra, there are different secret aspects, not because they're negative, but because if the person doesn't have the prerequisites to be able to understand and then use that well, instead of it becoming something positive, then it can become negative if the person doesn't know how to use it in the correct way. In these cases, are secrets. So generally speaking, so a lie creates a habit, and up to the point where one is not even able to distinguish for himself what's true or not, because one starts, telling a version to others, or tries to justify one version of reality, or push here, push there, and then you see that the person himself is confused as to what is true, what he said, and it's just a mess. And it can often bring a great malaise and incoherence inside oneself. Using words to create division. We don't even need to go into how or why this is a negative action. It can happen that somebody says something without the intention of creating division, but somehow it does. That's different when one doesn't have that intention. But we need to be careful. We live in a society with other people. Maybe one thing said to one is fine, but the same thing said to someone else isn't right. So we need to learn that when we speak. It was the first that Rinpoche would say, peace talking. So speaking is something corresponds to two or more parts. It's never just one. When I speak, or when anyone speaks, there's who is speaking and one or more who is listening. So what happens is, what's important is we need to always keep in mind who we have in front of us. It's fundamental. And we shouldn't be speaking for ourselves. I see often it happens. People speak not because they want to say something to someone else, but because they need to say that thing. It's like even when you're there just chatting, every once in a while you see that. Someone's telling a story, and there's another who has a similar story and wants to say something, and it's hard for that person to wait for the other person to finish so that they can tell their story, and then often that person gets to his turn to tell his story, but nobody's listening, but it just goes on and on. I've realized, I've seen this a lot, but this is our necessity to express ourselves, to say our own. But it's important to remember that when we speak, we are manifesting to the world our feelings and concepts, thoughts, emotions. And it's important to understand that when we show this, it's going to another. So what is it that I want to give to you? Do you need this or do you not? I want to say it, but do you need to hear this? Is it going to be good for you or not? If you don't need to hear what I have to say, and if it's not good for you, do do and if I really need to say it, take a pillow and just, say it inside. Bury your face in a pillow and say it, or go to the bathroom, or go into the forest, talk to yourself. Maybe someone would say you're crazy, but it doesn't matter. Because when we speak to someone else, we're creating an interaction. And it's delicate. So it's important. Speaking is important in many aspects, but let's remember when we're speaking to someone, we're not alone. The other is always there. It's true that it's the other person's job, to listen, but nobody knows our motivation. It's our job to adapt ourselves to our listener. Because one could say, oh, my motivation is good. Regardless of what you understood, my motivation was good. Well, no, I need to adapt myself to the one who's listening. How often have we heard someone say the right thing in the wrong moment, or the right thing in that wrong moment? So maybe we weren't ready or open to hear that thing in that moment, independently of the intention with which it was said. The same thing happens when we're speaking to others. We need to always remember that a fundamental point of the Dharma teachings is that they are for ourselves and not to be used to judge others. So just looking at ourselves, we need to think, when I speak, before saying anything, who do I have in front of me? And to speak with peace. Peace speaking, one of the prerequisites is having respect for who we have in front of us. Respect means I take you into consideration. You are important for me. What I want to say, I want it to be beneficial for you. I don't speak for myself. I'm speaking on your behalf, for you. There's something behind that. I want to transmit something. And if I find myself with someone, if I find myself if I find myself with someone and I see that what I have to say would not be beneficial to them, then I just stay quiet, because the probability is that there will be words that will create conflict, or it'll just be idle speech, and sometimes maybe even violent speech. Every once in a while I hear, oh, but it's the truth. Well, who cares? No, whether it's the truth or not, was it beneficial to say it to that person in that moment? If there's a benefit, a reason, then say it in every language. Otherwise, if there's no benefit, if there's no reason, there's only that someone's own need to say it. Okay, say it, but say it to yourself. I don't know if that's clear. Because how much of our own energy is wasted by, what this person said, what that person said. I see with myself, for example. I'm a person who, generally speaking, I try to pay particular attention to my speech. I grew up in a context in the monastery of Sera, where you know like in, for example, a debate taught me that every word has a great weight. So we don't just say something to say it. We say something. A word has a meaning. There's an intention behind it. When I say this, it's this. When I say that, it's that. I was educated like this, and for me, that's the way it is. And before saying something, think about it 5 times. Is it useful? Is it not useful? Is it necessary or not? But I realize that the times that I say things that I would have preferred to not say, the times that I say things that afterwards I right away after I say, oh goodness, what did I say? Those are the times where I'm just using idle speech, where I'm just there chatting. And what happens is that when we start talking about something, just like talking, just chatting, the real problem from my point of view is it's not that it's a negative, horrible action. But what happens is that when we start speaking, naturally, we start stimulating our attractions and our aversions. You tell me, has it ever happened that you're there, do you ever chat to rejoice for something? Most of the time when we're just chatting, we're talking about objects of attraction or aversion. Or am I wrong? No, it's like this. Or complaining about something, criticizing someone. Or we're trying, or, oh, how this is so nice, or how much I would like that. Generally speaking, when we're chatting, we're verbalizing our feelings, our present feelings. So we verbalize our own jealousy and envy and fears, etc., etc. It's true that there are times where verbalizing actually helps us to understand our own feelings better. So there are moments where we do need to talk about it. But those moments, we should do them with people with whom we have trust and intimacy. That they understand that I'm verbalizing to be able to organize my ideas, and so that they can be listening to us with a certain amount of neutrality. Because if I go to the bar of the marketplace and I start this process of mine of chatting to elaborate my feelings and thoughts, what happens is that it's going to end up in the ears of others, and they're going to understand something differently, or someone is going to be hurt, and there'll be conflict, etc. So what I realize is that when you get into this way of speaking, of chatting, at a certain point, it starts in a subtle way to give space. You give space to certain feelings, and then before you know it, you've said what you shouldn't have said. You've spoken. You've spoken in a way. You've spoken without awareness. But once the words are said, they can't come back. It's out there. Even they say, take that back, but you can't take back your words. They've been said. It's true that to speak and talking with someone often requires a certain amount of intimacy, but a sign of greater intimacy with someone is just being able to stay silent together. Two people that can be happy together in silence is something really beautiful. To being able to eat in silence. Nice. to be able to really taste the food, feel that present moment, just being there, present. We live in a culture where we need constantly to communicate and to speak, and if we don't speak, we don't seem friendly, and we shouldn't be like that, etc., etc. But at least in context where we have people with whom we have some intimacy, you know, we can establish that being together sometimes silently is something really beautiful. Nothing wrong with it. And when we find ourselves in situations where people are chatting, even there, we need to raise the level of our awareness. Because even if we're in a group chat, our words have power. Sometimes Rinpoche would say that words are worse than arms, weapons, because with words you can do greater damage. Then Rinpoche would say words are worse than guns. So when we're in a situation like that where people are chatting, we need to be even more careful. And then there's another subject too mixed in with all this, which is the more value we give to our own word. How do we give value to our speech? I say what I mean to say. I give value to my word. I respect what I say. The more I give value to my own word, the more natural the more the others will naturally give value to my words. The 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 more I don't respect my words by lying, by not saying what I mean. Even on an energetic level, gradually, even our speech loses value, even towards others. Others value it less. This reminds me of a story that I love. In This is the story of the meditator and the monster. I'm just going to make a long story short. There was this meditator who was walking one day, and he gets taken by the cannibal monster. This, the actual story is called Cannibal Monster. It was a monster that would eat human beings. Anyway, so this monster takes this person, takes him to his cave, and he's ready to eat him. He's preparing the fire. And as he's preparing the fire to cook him, to eat him, this practitioner, this yogi says, "Sorry, excuse me, monster." Excuse me, the monster. What do you want? No, okay, it's fine. I mean, you caught me. You want to eat me. We agree that that's the situation, but that's fine. But there's a problem. There's something in my life that I have not finished, and I have received teaching. I received teachings from my master, and I have not thanked him. For everything else, I'm fine. And then the monster saw that he was sincere, and it was a little strange, and he was curious. He said, okay, okay, it'll be really easy to catch him again. Okay, go. Go to thank your master, but come back quickly, because otherwise the water is going to cool down. So then he sets him free. He goes back to the village, and all the villagers are saying, "Oh, how in the world did you get free from this monster?" And they say, "Oh, no, I didn't escape. I've just come I'm going to do something and then I'm going to go back to him. They couldn't believe it. So then he goes to his master. He does 3 circumambulations on the temple. He thanks him and he comes back to the monster. And then the monster is absolutely shocked. He said, this is really stupid. I give him the possibility to escape and he's come back to me. And then he asks him, so what was it that was so important that you had to do? He says, oh, I needed to thank my master for teachings. And the answer says, well, what did he teach you? And the meditator said, you're not worthy of these teachings, so I'm not going to tell you them. And they said, well, why did you come back? And the meditator said, and this is the key, it's not the point of the story, but it's the key point for me. Now, the meditator says, I came back because I told you that I would come back. And it's from life, from many, many lives, I have not told a lie. And it's not for just one lifetime that I'm going to tell a lie. And this is the power of speech, who's able to maintain that. And after that, he says, okay, set the fire and eat me. What are you waiting for me? Make a long story short, after going back and forth, oh, you're not worthy of these teachings. And the monster says, what can I do so that you give me these teachings that were so important that you had to go and thank your master for. So the meditator finally, the meditator says, to receive these teachings, you have to take the commitment to not hurt people anymore, to hurt anyone anymore, because one of the first prerequisites of receiving these teachings is to abandon violence, ahimsa. And the monster said, okay. So he took that commitment with him, and then the meditator transmitted these Dharma teachings, and they came back together down to the village, and he became the protector of the village. And this reminds me another story, and I'll just tell it quickly, which connects with something else, which has to do with the power of the truth. I don't know if this is true or not true, but it's for centuries it's been told. That last one was an old story of centuries past, but now instead this story is recent, told by a friend. So someone in Brazil who is a great success. He was very well known in the media. He was kidnapped, and these men who wanted money, they took him just outside of São Paulo into the forest, and they kept him all night long. Just punching him and trying to get asking him things, trying to get ways to get money from him. And at a certain point, just before dawn, he was exhausted and desperate, and he was a man who is very eloquent. He speaks very well. He was exhausted, and he said, okay. They were there with guns to his head, and he said, okay, just kill me. Okay, I'm ready to die. And he says to them, just kill me, but I just want one thing. In my wallet, there's a $5 bill. Please give it to me. And they saw him that he was ready to die. Why would he want a $5 bill? And they were curious. Why do you want that bill? And he was so tired. He said, just give it to me. I don't feel like, don't want to tell you. They insisted. I said, okay. Because that bill, that $5 bill, was that when he was with his guru, who was Chakto Truku, his guru told him, he gave him that money he wanted to give him the money for the tsok. And he said, no, I have money for the tzog. And then his master said, no, I want to participate in the tzog too. So he kept that bill. So it was something from his guru that he kept, that was kept with him. And so they were curious, these kidnappers, and he took that opportunity to express the meaning for him for that bill. And so let's say that he took advantage of that moment. He saw that they were a little bit open to listening, and he was very direct to them and telling them like how cowardly they were, almost like from father to son. Remember that he spoke very eloquently, and they changed. They actually freed him, and they brought him back to the city, and then they heard from him things that they had never heard. I'm not saying that they became friends, but they listened to him and they followed. In the end, this man, when they freed him, he took off his glasses. Um, and, uh, um, uh, to one of these men, he gave him his glasses because he said, "This is something that I've actually paid for, that I didn't steal," and he gave it. They gave them to him. So the point is that when you want to say something that's deep and true, beyond being conceptual, it has a tremendous power. I mean, the powerful people are, what do? They speak. You go to United Nations, it's just endless talking. It's crazy. They talk and talk and talk. They talk and they talk and they talk. Talk. But in reality, the most powerful thing that exists in the world are the concepts and thoughts and the words. Speech transmits this. So in our own lives, it's very important to recognize the power of our own speech. Also because the speech creates reality. The more I repeat something, the more it becomes that. The more I say, oh, how horrible this is, how horrible that is, the more I'll see it as being horrible and ugly. So we need to be very careful. Instead of being careful, we need to give value. We need to give value to our speech. Speaking to Ben, protect the door of your senses. The first one to start with is your speech. I don't see those of you who are here present, those of you who are watching at home. Luckily, I don't see so many problems of physical violence, but speech instead is a fundamental point that we need to take care of. So remember, peace speaking, it starts from our motivation, from taking into consideration who we have in front of us. And remember that when we're peace speaking, we're making a gift to the one listening. It's something positive that we're doing to ourselves too. It doesn't have to do. It has to do with the tone of our voice, the words chosen. Every once in a while, an attitude comes with this. It's that I see. It's a little more modern, like well, I'm like this, and so people need to accept me for how I am, for who I am, or even there are T-shirts that say, "I am how I am," or like, I don't know, like things to say like, I live in a world of freedom, and so you need to accept me for who I am. Yeah, I need to accept you for who you are, but you don't have to accept yourself. What do I mean by that? I'm not talking about choices or like, with gender or this is not interested in that. I'm talking about my behavior towards others, where I have conduct. I have, if I see that I have behavior that is harmful to myself and to others, I need to put effort into changing them and not to impose them onto others. If I smell bad, I say, okay, well, just close your nose. You need to accept me. No, I should take a bath. We live in a free world. So if I want to stink, I can stink. Okay. But in reality, what happens is that, and we need to be careful in respecting others too. So we're the ones that need to wash ourselves. It's our way of behaving towards others, that we should pay attention to, all of us. Even a special person like Rinpoche, he was very careful with the words that he used. So why shouldn't we do that? So peace speaking also requires something really beautiful. It's about breathing before speaking. Give time to things, because when I speak with peace, I need to be in harmony with myself and with what I'm going to say, what I'm saying. Let's remember that often it's more beneficial to say less than more. Remembering also that silence can also be aggressive and violent. So communication comes also through silence, which is it's another topic, but is connected. But what I mostly see around us is not the problem of silence, but it's the problem of the extra words. So we should be careful and aware, and remember that every day we do we call ourselves Mahayana Buddhists, What's at the basis of all of that is love, is seeing others, seeing others, wanting the well-being of others. Even if we don't have this great love towards others, at least let's try to speak respectfully. Try to gradually direct our mind through our words. Regardless of where we are, people say, okay, normally it's fine, but when I'm in that context, that's so hard. Well, no, it's exactly in that difficult context that you need to where we can make the changes and grow. Those are the real victories in those difficult situations. A great victory for ourselves is when, like a context where we find ourselves in a context where normally we would react, violently or aggressively, and in that context we're able to speak and act respectfully and calmly. That would be a great victory. So let's remember that we to protect the door of our senses. Because to transform the mind, we need to begin by transforming our behavior, our ways a way of speaking, our physical behaviors to gradually get to our mind. And I'm not talking about like a forced control of our behavior. I'm talking about a process, a awareness that comes from inside to out, where I recognize that this behavior is beneficial, this one's not, and then I become more aware, and I try to really think before I speak, be aware of how I'm speaking, because words have great power. We need to value this power of speech. That's all for today. Let's say our dedications.
Lame kutse rapten che namkara tinle chokchur gepadang losan tempe dreme sasum ki drowe musel taktu ne gyur che kewa kuntu yanda lamadang dralme cheki pela longche ching sadan lamge yente rapzo ne Dorje change kopa nyur tobe sho nimo dele tsindele nime kuyan dele takto dele pe kuncho sumke jingilo kuncho sumke ngodrubutsol kuncho sumke trashishon. All'alba o al tramonto,
at
di
night
notte
or
durante
midday,
il giorno,
may the three jewels conceive us their blessings. May they help us to receive all the blessings and sprinkle the path of our lives with
Buona
various signs
giornata a
of
tutti.
auspiciousness.
Grazie.